And we are live.
Yay!
Welcome all who are tuning in to the second Women in Atheism. I think I said that correctly. Yay! I'm so happy to be here. I am your host, Cynthia McDonald, and I have these wonderful, beautiful ladies in front of me. We're going to be talking about all types of stuff, so just tune into our chatter. I'm pretty sure that you will get a lot out of it. But before we actually get started, let's just get a little housekeeping out of the way. If you're tuning in, please like this video and share it on your different social media platforms. Also subscribe to your friendly neighborhood atheist channel so that you can get notifications every time that we go live. And also hit the notification bell so that you can get those notifications and they don't just go into the ether. And if you like the content, consider being a patron. And we are going to thank our patrons at the end. All right, so we got all that great stuff out of the way. Now, let us introduce this fabulous panel that's in front of me. I think I'm going to start with my whatever hand. No, okay, that's so to the screen to my right, Faye, and we're just down the line. Let's go ahead and introduce yourself. So let's, your name, tell us a bit about yourself, where you're from, all that great stuff.
So my name is Faye. I live in the UK. It's very dark outside. I had to eat a meal and I have a whole bottle of Pepsi. I am what we call an ex-Muslim activist, but I'm very reluctant to call myself that. I talk a lot about religion. I talk a lot about religious freedom, free speech, women's rights on my channel, and just generally in my activism, because I just have a lot of life experiences I feel like I can share and other people can relate to. And if you do happen to subscribe to my channel, be warned that I don't always do that kind of content. I usually just have some fun. But yeah, that's who I am.
Nice. Thank you. All right, next up is Jess B. Jess, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Jess. I'm from Queens, New York. I've been an atheist for as long as I can remember. I used to be a teacher. I taught music to all grades, pre-K through 12th grade. I'm now a paralegal and looking to see if I would like to have a master's degree in forensic psychology or go into law to pursue the constitutional rights of children and people in general to prevent the religious from abusing the First Amendment the way they're trying to do now.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, they are. Jess, that is so cool. Actually, I taught music for a year in high school. So
did you love it?
No. And
you know what? I got tired of them telling me I'm not a testable subject, so they're going to cut my hours, or they don't want to. Forget it.
Yeah.
If I want my babies to jump around and sing and make music, and if the school is not interested, that's okay.
Exactly. It was a whole system thing, and then also to it. And now I'm a social worker, so go ahead with that.
Girl.
Yeah. All right. Next up is Miss Mindy, aka the Sassy Heathen. Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Mindy, and my YouTube channel is Sassy Heathen. I've been an atheist pretty much my whole life, even though I've kind of dabbled in religion here and there because I wasn't raised with any. This is my first official panel that I've joined in on, so this is really new for me.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. And I am Canadian, looking to move to Pennsylvania in the States and finish off my nursing degree eventually.
Nice. And then I just say to you, all right.
Yeah, my husband, I hear that on a daily basis. Trust me.
I couldn't help it. I'm sorry, Mindy.
That's what everybody says.
Nice. And now we also have the wonderful Jenna Belk. Introduce yourself.
I guess I've been an atheist for about a year and a half, I guess. I pretty quickly delved into the ACA and wanted to help people learn, because when you deconvert, you find out there's a lot of stuff you don't know. And so I'm just basically sharing the things that I'm learning. So I'm just kind of learning out loud, I guess.
That's great.
That's
I respect that.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's what's up. I think that you actually learn more when you teach. At least that's what I was told.
Preach.
Yeah.
Well, because I guess you learn what you don't know. So, because
Right.
if you're like, oh wait, okay, I gotta go back and check on that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a vicious cycle of learning.
God, you just find out, yeah, you don't know. I don't know anything.
Same. Honestly.
Yeah,
I'm in the same boat.
I'm the smartest, dumbest person that you ever met.
Right.
And last but definitely not least is Marie the Elephant. Introduce yourself.
Well, as you said, I am Marie the Elephant.
Perfect. It's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not my real name, but it's what I go through or what I use publicly. But I'm from Minnesota. I'm just 8 miles away from where George Floyd was killed a week and a couple of days ago. Mm-hmm. And so I grew up here, where this is all happening, and it's happening everywhere clearly. But let's go to something lighter, right? So I'm a former evangelical Christian. I left the faith in 2003, and then I spent 15 years dealing with trauma. The deconversion was the easy part. Yeah. And so once I was able to get to a brave place to really start leaning into my stuff, I started talking about it out loud. And that eventually kind of got me involved in whatever the fuck this is, this secular community, this humanist community, this atheist community, these people who are trying to live on earth. And so it's gotten me involved in different podcasts where I focus on themes of autonomy, whether it's your personal autonomy or whether it's the autonomy of other people, like an entire race that would rather not be shot in the street, that kind of autonomy. And so I'm very much about recovering from your religion and then also rebuilding a new set of values that reflects what's really happening on this planet. So that's the soapbox that I scream on, and I do it on the podcast. And then I also am somewhat infamous for being ethically non-monogamous. So I talk a lot about how that can be an ethical choice for people, and it challenges a lot of the scripts that we have about relationships, and it helps us learn a lot about communication, negotiation, and releasing a lot of codependency. And so I'm very passionate about a lot of things. And on top of that, I'm kind of an independent photojournalist right now, going to the protests every day and taking pictures and talking to people and getting stories and then sharing them on my website for marqueephoto.com. So that's a lot of what I do. I think I'm great. I'm very much enamored with myself, and I'm
you're awesome.
I'm happy to be alive. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be with all of you. And the last thing I want to say is that after the news about the additional the additional officers being held accountable for abetting and the escalation of the charge for former officer Chauvin, my friend and I, who have been at protests for this whole week, might have inhaled certain chemicals and ran around in the backyard in the sprinkler to celebrate the news.
Hooray!
And so the point I want to make with that is that I may still have some of those chemicals in my body at this very moment. And it may impact my coherency, but so far I think we're doing pretty good. So that's
those lovely, nice Minnesota manners.
All right.
So thank you for having me here.
Oh, thank you for being here. And, I'm all about, your coherency is just fine.
Okay, good.
And I just like to tell the person that's in the background that's running all this, I was not the first person to drop the F-bomb on this show. All right.
Yay!
You couldn't have invited me if you thought that was going to be a competition.
Oh, man. I was waiting for somebody to do it because I love to say it.
Fuck.
And yay. Fuck.
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 The fuck flag raised in the breeze.
Can I quickly add something before we dive into anything too serious? Because it's never going to come up again. Marie, we are shave buddies.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So you guys both look so cute.
You just did the half on there?
It looks so good on you guys.
I've got some going on too. It's just kind of grown in.
Yeah.
I don't let anybody cut my hair.
Oh, I cut my own.
My mother used to put a bowl on my head and just cut around it in the 80s and the 90s. And now I'm like, no.
Oh.
My mother never let me used to cut my hair, so now I just do it by myself.
Doesn't
Yeah,
it feel
girls do it.
so good?
I
Oh,
do
good.
too.
Like,
It
you know,
feels-
you remember when Britney Spears shaved her head and we were
Yes.
all like, she's such
She
a
looked
mess.
good, though.
Feels
And then
so
we look
clean
back
and
now and we're like, oh,
smooth.
she got it.
Uh-huh.
She knew.
Brittany knew
She-
what was up. We were all too
She
busy
knows what's
shitting on
up.
her.
We were just judgmental assholes.
Word. We did the same
Yeah,
thing
we
to Megan
were.
Fox.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
do the same thing to a lot of ladies in Hollywood.
No, when I first started shaving the back of my head, because I usually keep that shaved anyway, I
Mhm.
remember how like nice and cold and just clean it felt. It felt like something that had been on my head forever was just gone.
Yeah.
You spend the first day
Oh.
just sitting here, just rubbing it, and like, oh, it feels
Yes.
so nice.
So that's
Yeah.
actually what I'm trying to do too. Like I found out that I don't like hair back there, so I'm trying to do. I do
Yeah,
it myself
get it.
too. I don't know.
It's so good.
I don't know if you can
too.
see, but yeah, I'm with y'all. I'm totally with you.
I remember when I don't even know how we got on shaved heads, but whatever.
Well, you know, it's interesting because we are women,
Baseball.
and this is not a normal conversation
No.
amongst women.
Isn't it great to shave your head, girl?
Yes.
Right?
Oh, God.
It is great to shave your
Fuck the
head.
patriarchy.
Yeah,
And
no,
Marie,
right?
is that usually how you keep your hair, Marie? That's like your
No.
New.
I've just
I remember
I was just really mad about racism, and I just
Awesome.
don't have time to deal with
wow.
hair, and I just shaved it
Do you
off.
have a
I'm like,
breakdown?
no, I'm broken up. I'm just fine. I'm doing wonderful.
All right, great.
you just was like solidarity.
Yeah.
I do this now. Okay.
I don't have time to go according to your fucking narratives.
For real.
Fucking shaving it off, and I'm going into battle. I'm going into South Minneapolis and showing up, and you know, not to shame any like people who care about their hair, but that's what was happening inside of
Right.
my brain and my
You have masks, Marie?
masks. Yes,
Yeah, like facial masks? Okay.
yeah, we
good.
wear masks the whole time. Yeah,
Good.
Nice. Good. Very
Are
good.
you guys able to get COVID tests if you need them?
I believe so. Yeah, they're
Okay,
doing
good.
thousands a day.
Okay, good. That's important because if
haven't
you're
even
going to
thought
be
about
out, yeah, girl. No, I don't blame you. It's just I have this horror of like everybody going out and being so brave and amazing and like doing this and then getting sick is like the last thing they
Yeah.
need.
Well, that's what they're saying at the protests are like, what's happening right now is that people
Right.
are realizing there is a pandemic that's lasted 400 years.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's right. Amen.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Well, you know what? Again, this is not on my list, but that's okay. Yeah, I feel you on that shaving head thing. I remember when I actually did it, you know, like, because I used to have like an afro. And then like I was like, you know what? I've been wanting to shave my head off ever since I saw Black Panther and I saw like those the warrior women and I was like,
Yes.
oh fucking dope. And then,
Right.
and then I was like, no, and I was like, going, shouldn't I? I don't know. And then like I was just like, fuck it. I'm just gonna go into the barbershop and just say, just do it. Like, and I
That's
showed
right.
him the picture and then he shaved my head and I was like, ah!
You went to a barber shop?
Yeah.
That sounds like a great idea to go to a barber shop.
So much more fun to just start going on your head.
It is. I'm
So
totally with
much
you,
more.
Faye.
Probably, but I'm just like, so like, I'm gonna fuck my head up. I already know. I don't trust me. I don't. With that.
I would end up completely bald because I would just fuck up the length.
No,
And I would be
no.
like,
What?
I can do a fade.
That's
What?
the goal.
Yeah.
There's something really satisfying about taking that buzzer and just going right down the center of your
Yeah.
head.
Yes.
And it's like, feels wonderful.
I'm so
It's very
curious.
liberating.
I'm so curious what it is about all of us being able to feel that kind of freedom with, you know, cutting our hair off and feeling the breeze and what is it about, like, I couldn't do that as a Christian.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, because you had a role to fill. That's
Gender
why you were
roles.
supposed to be feminine.
I mean,
Yeah.
I keep my
not
hair
the-
long because I want everyone to say the fuck off my head, like after having a bowl cut for how many years. Like, but I don't keep my hair long because I think that, you know, I should because I'm a woman.
Right.
I just get off me.
Yeah.
You know,
Not
like
to-
we're
not
Go
to
ahead,
point score, but I grew up in a Muslim family, covered my face, covered everything. I think that for me, one of the first choices I ever made in my life at the age of 18 was cutting my hair because it was like down to my ass. And it was just something that, you know, I don't think it's particularly prohibited for you to cut your hair in Islam, but it was just something that my mother never let me do. She never let me. She loved my hair so much. She loved my hair more than she loved her hair. She would brush it every morning. She would oil it. She would braid it. And it was just like, I don't want this.
And then she would hide it.
And then she would hide it. Yeah. And, you know, it just got to the point where she would never have any time for it anymore. And I would just like roll it up into a bun and she would be like, you never style your hair. And I would just look at her and say, because I hate it.
Right.
And
Every time back that control, basically.
Yeah.
And
Every
when
time
she
I
got-
shave my head, I think inside, it's all a fucking game.
That's right.
This is all a fucking
It
game.
is.
I don't have to play
And
anymore.
Marie, you look so good. You
Thank
really look so
you.
good. It's great. Like all you
Thanks.
ladies with the short hair, it looks beautiful.
I'm so
Like-
jealous because I can't get that far. Like I want to get that far. Like I keep,
Well, how
I
long
keep
was
like
your hair
inching
before?
closer and closer. If you watch the videos of me over the past year, my hair's gotten shorter and shorter.
Yeah, it has.
and shorter.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Getting
We'll
closer
get
and
there.
closer.
And it's just like I don't have the balls. I don't
need
have the
to-
ovaries.
You don't need them. They're
You
very,
just
very
need to-
sensitive.
You just need to trust
For
yourself.
real.
If it's something you want, you just need to trust yourself.
And by looking at like your nice forehead and everything, you have a nice head. You could do
You have
it.
like an
Well, that's what I was
oval
thinking.
head
Is
as
because
well.
of my forehead, I don't have a pretty hairline. You know, it's not
What's
like
over
Pretty
girl?
hairline.
Buzz,
Burn
buzz,
this
buzz.
down. Burn it down. Burn
Word.
it down.
And you know what?
Real,
Realistically, when you do shave your head, it's hair. It grows back.
Mhm.
And it grows back a lot quicker than you realize, especially when you buzz your head. You're like, oh my
Right.
God, it's growing already. So, I mean, if you change your mind, big deal. You grow back.
Right.
Yeah,
I made a new friend recently. It was one of the first non-binary friends that I'd made as an atheist, and I was kind of getting used to talking to somebody that I wasn't used to talking to. And I was talking to them about how I was kind of transitioning over to being free myself. And I was like, you know, the day that you see me with a different colored head, like blue, pink,
Yeah.
that's the day that you'll know that I am free.
Yeah.
I'm not
Do
there
it.
yet.
No.
Do it.
Do
Did
it.
you guys feel obliged to perform your femininity more as religious people?
Well,
No.
here's an
I've
interesting
always been a
question. Are we
masculine.
still performing something? Are
Oh,
we
for
right now?
sure.
Are we performing?
What do you
Like
mean by performing?
right,
Meaning
right.
like Faye, meaning like you adhere to the things that are expected of you in your gender.
Like you can
meaning
perform a gender role.
modesty, obedience, long hair,
I mean,
makeup, doing your eyebrows, shaving your legs, you know, all
I
the stuff that
perform to what I like.
yes,
Right.
yeah,
So you're
that's
not
what I'm saying.
performing. You're just
I
Right.
do that
being.
too.
Yeah.
Now,
Right.
yeah,
I mean,
right.
like, performing would mean like you're doing it because you feel like you're expected to.
Right, that's what I'm asking. Like when you were religious, did you feel like you had to be feminine or adhere
Oh,
to
yeah,
a stereotype
completely.
of
Oh, yeah.
femininity?
There was no other way.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt the same way too. I mean, like, even like when we were talking about hair, you know, as a Christian, like, how many times have you all heard that scripture? You know, the woman's hair is her
Is her
glory.
glory, yeah.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. Samson and Delilah, right?
Yeah, exactly. All that.
Wah, wah.
I don't want that
Guy with
Jesus
hair.
glory.
Yeah, for real.
Nah,
But you
nah.
know, but that's why they make women shave their heads when they get married in the Orthodox communities and things like that. Because once you have caught a man, you don't need this ananymore. Because if you walk around with your own hair all the time, what are you but a dirty Jezebel?
Wow.
You know,
I
like
didn't even know that was a thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, and that's
Jezebel.
mostly among the Hasidim and the Haredi communities. But like, for
Where?
example, the Hasidim and the Haredi communities, the very, very religious Jewish communities, women will either cut their hair short, buzz it really short, and put a hat over it, or they'll take it off and they'll put on a wig. And that's something that you do right before you get married.
I mean, if you wear a wig, does that not just defeat the point?
oh, of course it does. It's all
Giving up your whole-
hypocrisy.
Faye, stop asking
But it's
questions.
between you and God.
Exactly.
I'm just asking a question. I don't know too much about
But
No,
you're
don't
right,
do
Faye.
that.
You're right. It is just, you know, does defeat the purpose, I think. And I think it also forces these beautiful young women to look very frumpy
It's
and very
very-
aged.
It's very traumatic to do something to your hair that you don't want to do.
Mm-hmm. And to have your mother tell you, you have to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That you're a bride now. You've caught a man. We've arranged a marriage for you. This is what you have to do as a woman. You have to cut your hair off. You don't need it anymore. And that used to drive me insane because as a voice teacher, I would always get these little Orthodox girls in my neighborhood who wanted to sing. And I was like, yeah, sure. Voice lessons for all. No problem. Like, I think everybody should sing, even if you think you can't. But then I would come outside to the moms and the mom would be like, oh, she's not going to be a singer. She's going to have to stop this when she turns 12 anyway. And I was like, what if she's really talented? Like I had one little girl who was really talented, perfect pitch, good breath control. I didn't have to help her with a lot, you know. It was mostly harnessing the horse so that she could learn to ride it properly. And she was 10, and her mother said, yeah, she's got 2 years on this, but you know, once she turns 12, she has to stop. And the kid didn't blink because she knew. And I said, okay. And I said to the kid in one of her lessons, why does mom want you to stop singing? And she said, after the age of 12 / menarche, you may not sing in front of men to whom you are not related. And you're better off keeping that activity within the circle of women that you know. And I asked her why, and she couldn't really answer. And I knew I wasn't supposed to explain it to her, but I did it anyway. Like, honestly, I should have been fired a lot as a teacher because I was always like, this isn't true, you know? But I said to her, you know, you're a big girl. You understand the concept of virginity and marriage and all those things. And so basically what this law is telling you is that should you be such a dirty whore as to raise your beautiful singing voice in front of men to whom you are not related, or even to whom you are related, and they get an erection and they lose their self-control and they rape you and you lose your virginity, it's your fault because you were such a Jezebel that you sang and you tempted him.
That's so sad.
Isn't that horrendous victim blaming?
We were told the same thing growing up.
I'm sure.
Have you heard of Shelley Segal?
Yeah.
That sounds kind of like what she experienced.
That wouldn't be surprising. And her voice is incredible.
And the songs that she sings, like they could be like our new gospel.
Yeah. Faye, were you allowed to sing and do all that stuff as in dance and all that as a kid?
I wasn't allowed to read Harry Potter. I wasn't allowed to do anything.
A Brit not allowed to read Harry Potter.
How are you not going to be able to read Harry Potter in Britain?
No, I still read it. I read it in a closet in my house.
Yeah, I would have done the same thing. Good for you.
I still read all of them, but no, I got indoctrinated at a really young age. And I kind of also fell in love with the indoctrination. So I fell deeper and deeper into that rabbit hole before I had to climb out. And that was a difficult thing to go through. But growing up, girls weren't allowed to do anything. I think as soon as I turned 10, 11, I wasn't allowed to hang out with my cousins anymore, wasn't allowed to play video games with my uncles anymore. I just had to stay in the kitchen, learn how to cook, learn how to sew, just girl stuff.
Yeah. When did you get out of sixth form? Like they let you go all the way through?
Yeah, so I finished my education up until sixth form. I started my degree in 2018.
Yes, girl.
After everything.
Good. That's the year I graduated when I was 30. I finally graduated college.
Okay.
Yeah, so good for you. Keep going on that.
Thanks.
It can only make your life better.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to tell myself. But I'm doing a science, and I'm not a scientific person.
Yeah.
So, well, it's a soft science. It's psychology. But it's still,
I love it.
Growing up, I was a literature student, so for me, it's very difficult to like get into that and try and write as articulately as some, scientists, psychologists, and things like that. So that's what I'm finding difficult. I can't bullshit my way through it, is what I'm saying.
No, you can't
do that.
No. So look, I want to ask you all, because since we kind of touched on this, and I believe that a lot of us actually came from more. Well, maybe not all. I know not all of us came from more strict or religious backgrounds. But, what would you say that kind of led you from how you felt like you were strict, that more gender roles were placed on you because of your religion, and how you took that to kind of find your way out of religion? And anybody can jump in at this point.
In terms of gender roles and Islam kind of controls your whole life. You wake up with a prayer, you go to sleep with a prayer, you go to the bathroom, there's a prayer, there's a methodology of how you clean yourself. Like, it's very, very invasive as a religion. So for women, there are more progressive factions now, but the kind of faction that I adhered to was extremely conservative. So my goals in life were to get married and have kids,
Mm-hmm.
and that was it. Those
Mhm.
were the roles, and those things. Like, there's a lot of pressure put on women getting married. Like, being married is like half your religion. There are narrations like that, and the benefit of having loads and loads of kids so that the Muslim community grows.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and raising good Muslim children. And it was just like, that was all I had as a goal before I left religion. Well, really, it was the entire world that I knew, because I also couldn't associate with people from other backgrounds. So when people would put other ideas to me, like, oh, don't you want to go to university? I would just say, no, my goal in life is to just get married and have kids, because I just thought it was that simple. And also the other thing was that marriage was something dangled, like an escape from your current family. So like, if I asked my mom, hey mom, I want to get a cat, you can get a cat when you're married. I want to cut my hair, you can cut your hair for your husband, sort of thing. And it was always kind of dangled as this, like, oh, when you attain marriage,
Which is the whole purpose. Yeah.
Did you have both Muslim parents?
Yeah, it doesn't really work otherwise.
Yeah.
Well, the reason that I ask is because I kind of grew up with one side of my family was really religious, and really that's what I got indoctrinated from. But the other side of my family was not. So I kind of got exposed in a certain way to different things. So I was just wondering if you...
Right. Well, my family weren't very religious in the beginning. They kind of joined more religious factions. So there was like a big transition when I was like hitting my teen years. So about 10, 11, where my father got more religious, and then I got more religious, and then everybody became more religious because I wouldn't shut up and my dad wouldn't shut up. We're the chattiest people in our family. So, I kind of shot myself in the foot there, but I didn't know I was a kid.
But you didn't know.
Yeah, I didn't know. I mean, like, I started covering my face when I was like 11, and that was by my choice. But again, I was 11, so how much choice could I possibly have?
Yeah.
I didn't find a lot of non-Muslim kids making that choice at 11, so it's almost like they presented that to you.
Yeah, I mean, I also went to a Muslim school, so that also facilitated it. It wouldn't have happened if I went to like a normal public school.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to hear something crazy? Right about 5 blocks from my house is a yeshiva right next to a Muslim school.
Okay.
Where I live. They're literally right across the street from each other. Yeah. They get along. I never see any conflict between them because that's the block that my brother lives on. So I never see any conflict, but it's very interesting to watch the two separate practices.
Yeah.
And like they're separated by gender all the time, and the boys have their own recess and the girls have their own recess, and like it's a very interesting juxtaposition because I don't think they're that different from each other.
Well, this actually is another thing that these communities that have like boys and girls who are constantly separate from each other, because Muslims do the same thing, especially conservative Muslims. It creates this like mystery around what the undergender is. Like, I remember when I first started dating, I just expected men to rape me and harass me. I just expected
Of course, that's what you're told.
Because that's what I'd been brought up on for such a long time. And it just made me very nervous and uncomfortable. I still can't be approached by men. I've become very defensive. A lot of people have walked away very unhappy.
I mean, to be fair, men have to take responsibility for the interactions they have with women.
Some men are absolutely just sweet, but they just have the wrong approach, and like they'll approach me from behind, and it just becomes a very confrontational thing for me. So I don't like it, which is why like online dating is very much an avenue for me, because then I can tick all my boxes before I go and meet somebody. But I think that separation is also meant to like build that mystery. So once you're married to a stranger, you'll just kind of do what you're told to do.
Because you're used to it being a mystery?
Yeah.
So that sounds so scary.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
So, the only kind of men that you grow up around is like your siblings and your father, and those men have been raised in like a really, really misogynistic environment. So it's just like a constant structure and a constant cycle. And you're also told that men who aren't from a Muslim background are degenerates and will harass you. So it's a whole mess.
Did any of you guys feel similarly threatened by men? Like, I grew up in my mother's Catholic, my father's Jewish, and even as a kid, I was like, well, both of you can't be right. So, you know, and I remember that if I felt threatened by a man, it was not because I had been told religiously that men only want one thing, even though eventually when I got to catechism school and they did like the girls talk, you were told that. Mm-hmm. If I felt threatened by a man, I lived with a very threatening man. My father is like a psycho. Same. So yeah, so I was used to being threatened by men. So I too took that as the default approach of men towards women. And I had to unlearn that. And I experienced a lot of sexual violence. I experienced a lot of issues, gender issues between boys and girls, men and women. But for me, it wasn't religiously based because I was never emotionally manipulated into being part of a religion. They tried. But my brothers and I are both atheists. Like, if I felt threatened by a man, it's because that motherfucker was threatening me. Mm-hmm. You know? And I feel like they scared all of us into such into a place where we would submit because we were so terrified, and they never taught us to stand up for ourselves. And they told us you are secondary to a man. As Christ is the head of the church, so the man is the head of the family. Mm-hmm. Like, I know the Christian ladies have certainly heard that, you know. And so I think it engineers us to be terrified, but also to submit, to lay down.
Well, that's what the Bible says. Mm-hmm. Wives, submit yourself to your husbands as it is fit in the Lord. Does it not say that? Yeah. So, and I mean, yeah. So we and then oftentimes it's interpreted very much so literally. So.
Right. And I really can't talk because I have so much privilege as a white person that my culture and my ethnicity did not demand that I adhere to this. I'm completely socially free. I can do whatever I want. And that's a privilege that's not extended even to my fellow white women, of course, but more often to women of color are totally told you have no identity outside the group. Don't even try. You know?
Yeah, depending on, like, I would say, like, the religious practice, that's definitely an issue. And also government, but that's a whole nother story.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say that the authority of the husband, like, there are rules in Saudi Arabia that women can't travel alone. And there are apps, actually, that they have over there where men can see where their wives are.
I heard about that, where they can track them where they are at all times.
Yeah.
This is so weird because listening to some of the extreme circumstances of growing up completely separate from boys and not being exposed to any other religion or anything like that versus this, you know, free American city. You know, it's so interesting because it's so weird. I experienced like exactly in the middle. Like,
cool.
Like one side of my family was very influential. We were very Catholic. Every Sunday you go to church. I could not go to a slumber party on a Saturday night. I was going to get married. I was going to get all A's and I was going to do good things. But in the end, I was really going to be a nun, you know? And so it's like weird that I've experienced some of this extremist where I didn't feel any need to learn anything. Like kind of like fit, you know? It's like, I'm going to be a mom, a wife and mom.
Well, I got told that too, but that's because my mom thinks she's Betty Draper, not because of religion.
Oh, yeah. Well, but I'm one of 7 kids. And so
girl.
My dad's one of 7 kids. Yeah. And so we're expected to have a lot. I wanted to have 5 kids. Yeah. You know, I wanted to do what I was supposed to do. And there was just something in me as I was growing up. And I guess it was being exposed to traditional American society at the same time
wrong,
somehow.
Jenna. It was the devil.
No, that's actually what they think. That they think it was. They blame my husband's family because I started dating a guy right out of high school, like right at graduation was one of the first times we hung out, and it got very quick. He was exactly like my father, very religious, very. Just exactly like my father. That ended up not working out. And what I realized is he broke up with me because I found out I had mental health issues. I have PTSD. I have temper tantrums. And he broke up with me for that, which was in the end a good thing because it allowed me to start exploring myself. But I wouldn't have been able to do that if I had gotten locked into that marriage in that small town. Right. I don't know where I'd be.
Your life would have been
Don't think about it.
Right. It's like a different kind of extreme because it's just confusing, you know?
I wouldn't think about it.
Cindy, So Mindy, I know that like you're being like in Canada, and you know the rest of us is not in Canada. Like, what would you say that had you had like these same type of experiences growing up, and then kind of finding your way out, or it was
where in the area that I grew up in, it was religion just wasn't a thing really. Like, I mean, I'm sure some families of the kids that I went to school with had religion, but we didn't hear about it in school. Like, I was probably in grade 2 or grade 3 when they stopped the Lord's Prayer over the announcements in the morning. And then that was it. Like, I don't remember any type of influence religion had on me or my schooling or my family or anything like that.
What kind of school did you go to where they said the Lord's Prayer? Was it public?
It was a public school, but I'm also 40, so this is back in like the very early 80s that they were.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay.
You do not look 40.
Not at all. I never would have said.
I have my daughter. My oldest daughter just turned 17, so yeah, I'm getting up there.
Oh, girl.
Oh, wow.
Raising them heathens, yeah.
No, you're looking good. You're looking good. So, like, when you were saying this, like, it really wasn't a thing. Would you say that, like, you know, Canada is like more like secularly inclined than you would say, like, the United States or like other countries at all? I mean, like, I have an aunt.
It's not even a question.
It's hard to say because, like I said, I haven't been exposed to a lot of it. I think that I notice people's religions now a lot more than I did back when I didn't really think about it. Like, was when I first got married at 22 and had babies, I had a full-time job. I wasn't really thinking about that kind of stuff. And then when I wasn't raised with it, it really wasn't a big deal. But then when I started kind of going down that path of atheism, I started to really notice, well, this person is this religion. Like, there's a mosque like three or 4 blocks from my house, maybe. And then there's like Ukrainian Orthodox churches, and there's Catholic churches. We have Catholic schools. So there's such a diversity of different religions in just such a small area that you don't really see an impact of one particular one. You know,
that's the same where I live.
So what inspired you to start doing this? If you were raised atheist and you kind of weren't really exposed to it, what got you into this?
I married a family that is very Christian.
Oh.
Yeah, and I started exploring. Like, it was it kind of evolved because it started off with when I got married, and I noticed how Christian that family was. I tried Christianity, and it just kind of didn't jive with me. I didn't really get it. I felt like I was pretending when I went. So I kind of decided, you know what, this is not for me. And I started posting a lot of anti-religion memes on my Facebook page. And then as I added more of his family to my Facebook, I felt like I was new to the family. I didn't want to offend anybody, but this was something that I wanted to talk about. So I started reaching out to different debate groups on Facebook, and I started debating with people. And then I started to realize some of the attitudes of theists towards atheists, especially me as a female. I noticed that they treated me very differently being a female atheist as opposed to just a male atheist. And I kind of got really offended by that. I'm like, just because I'm a woman doesn't mean I can't be an atheist. And it's just kind of built from there, where I've kind of been speaking out more and more. And I landed here on YouTube about a month and a half ago.
Yes.
Nice. That's nice. Can I tell a story? Because I think that that's a perfect segue for my story. Remember that I was on Twitter. I said I got a story to tell.
Yes.
and then like I want each of you all to comment on the story like after I'm done with it. Okay. So and also too, this kind of goes into kind of like, you know, everything that has happened so far, especially like, you know, the outcry after George Floyd's death. So of course, like, you know, I'm in Chicago. And there was a lot of protests and riots this weekend. And all the stores in our area were closed because of, you know, everything that happened. And so I attended a press conference with the advocacy group that I'm part of, where we were calling on the governor to actually release resources in Black communities that were devastated by these particular riots and looting, right? So after we were done, there was a young woman that was there who asked if I lived in that area, and I said, yeah. And I asked her if she needed a ride. She said, yes. So I told her, I said, well, I need to go to the grocery store because I was having all first world problems after this whole riot thing happened. My Whole Foods got canceled. My Instacart got canceled. I was upset, right? So I was like, well, we're going to see if we can actually find a grocery store that was open. And she said, yeah, because I need food too. I said, cool. So we went to, I was trying to find a store in the area. Everything was closed, right? And then so I ended up like texting my boss and I said, can I take the rest of the day off? And he said, yeah. And then we ended up going to a different state. We had to go to a neighboring state in order to find a grocery store. Yeah. But at least it wasn't that far. So it wasn't that big of a deal. But the thing that we had to go to a whole different state. That's
right.
So
well, I mean, I'm sorry, Cynthia. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. But save that. So we get to I decided that I was going to call home, let my family know that I was going to be a while because I need to go to the grocery store. And my mom was like, "Are you okay? Everything okay?" And I was like, "Yes, I'm fine." And then she was like, "Oh my goodness!" And the woman was like, "Well, the God that I love and I serve and the Holy Spirit would have told me if there was hurt, harm, or danger, and we would not go." And I was like, oh gosh. And I was like,
oh no.
Yeah. And then I was just like, well, I'm an atheist, but sure.
Right.
And I was hoping that if I said that she would chill on the God shit, right? But I was wrong. So when we were done shopping and and then we got our groceries back in my car, heading back towards the city, I got proselytized all the way from the time that we left
so
Indiana all the way to Chicago. And I was like, and some of the crazy things that was being said. She likened being atheist to Scientology.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
I'm also right. And I was like, no, that is very wrong. She kept on saying the word etymology. And I think that if any person actually checked our last one, I said, anytime I hear the word syllogism, presupposition, or even etymology, I want to take a rusty ice pick and stab myself in the eye. And then so I had to correct her on the Scientology thing. I had to correct her on the whole thing about the etymology, because I'm like, I really don't give a shit. And then then after I started then what did she say? Oh, she had a really cute argument for this one, because I was trying to just shut this whole conversation down. And I told her, listen, you cannot prove that God exists. No one can. And then she said, yes, I can. I can prove it. I said, no, you can't. No one can prove God exists. Even the most astute theologian will tell you that they cannot prove that God exists. And then she said, so you prove God doesn't exist. I said, I can't do that either. And I never said that I did not say, I never said that I could. I just said, I said, I'm going back to the definition that majority of atheists use. It's just a lack of a belief in a God or gods. That's it. And it's based completely on lack of evidence. I don't care what type of argument you come up with. If some of I didn't even know what a presuppositional Christian apologist was until I started listening to the Atheist Experience. Shout out to Jenna Belk.
They scare me. They really scare me. I just I don't know how to handle that yet.
No,
I can't be bothered.
No,
I cannot be bothered.
Yeah, and then, but the crazy thing about it was, when she told me, because I said that you can't prove that God exists, no one can, and then she told me that if you cannot if you've never been to outer space, you cannot prove that the stars and the sun exist. I said, what are you talking about? It's right there.
But I can see him.
Right. I said, no. I said, no, we can observe with our human senses certain things, like the sun, like stars. I mean, even you mentioned light, you mentioned sound. We can measure those things. We know that they exist. So again, I don't know what you're talking about, lady, but you know, we about like 2 minutes away from your house, and I cannot wait for you to get out. And so, and so, like, and I don't know what she was telling me that I was being judgmental, and I said I never brought up this. I never, and I was even saying, I said, you know what? Here's the thing. I don't have an issue with Christians. I was a Christian for a very long time in my life. I've only been atheist for about 2 years now. If you want to pray, cool. If you want to, whatever you do, whatever. But please just don't take your Bible and beat it over my head and make me submit to you.
Right.
That's what I need you not to do. So that was a very horrible experience. And I just want to throw that out there, and y'all comment.
Well, it's so typical. It's so typical of Christians and religious people in general. When they hear you say, I am an atheist, they take that as an invitation to proselytize to you.
It's a challenge.
And there's this girl on Instagram who has been like on my heels for like 3 days now, not understanding that she, as the person who says that her God is real, must demonstrate that claim. And I keep trying to explain to her, because she keeps going, you can't prove he's not, you can't disprove it. And I'm going, honey, you got to prove it in the first place. Mm-hmm. So instead of presenting me evidence that doesn't rely on faith or presupposition, which should be fairly easy to do, I can do it, you know, for things that I claim. She's just resorted to preaching. And I told her, if you're going to keep preaching at me, what you're demonstrating to me is that you can't meet your burden of proof. And that's not my fault, but that is your fault. And then that turned into, you're a Satanist. And I was like, but I don't believe in your imaginary enemy, Satan, either. Right. It turned into you're hating, you're disrespecting, you're mean, you're rude, you're a bitch, you're all these things. And I get called a bitch a lot by Christians and by religious people. And the reason I think it happens is because I don't validate their ideas. And I tell them straight out, it's not my obligation to validate your ideas. It's your job to do that. Therefore, I am not obliged to placate you into engaging with me. If you're making a claim and you say it's true and you came here to engage with me honestly, then do so. If you cannot do so, let's examine why you can't. If you're not open to examining why you can't, then peace and chicken grease, I don't want to talk to you. And actually, I want to give Jenna a huge shout out for her patience for people on the phone. You are so kind and so nice and so patient. And like, I admire that, because I am matter of fact, but I wouldn't say that I'm like, comfy, cozy, like pat you on the head.
I wouldn't say I am either.
I don't think you are. Yeah, I don't think you're patting people on the head, but you're certainly nicer than I have the instinct to be. Like, I love that about you. Like, that's what makes watching you so great.
I think that the Christians in your country try a lot harder than in mine.
They do, because it's very profitable to be a Christian in America.
Well, all the evangelicals left UK to come here, so we brought our crazy with us.
True. Yeah. Oh. But when a Christian approaches me here, I actually quite enjoy it, because usually I'm met with such vitriol from Muslims. It's really nice for somebody to preach at you with like, we love you, kind of, rather than you're going to burn in hell if you don't come back right now.
Totally, 100%.
So I think the last time it was these two Catholic boys. It was so sad. Because I was with a friend of mine, and back then I still wore a hijab because I was living with my family. So they must have thought that I was a Muslim when they approached me. And they asked me something like, what makes you happy? And I was like, I don't know, eating ice cream. And they were like, you know how you can find true happiness? Jesus. And I was like,
why not more ice cream?
Yeah, why not more ice cream? How about chocolate topping on top of the ice cream? That's extra happy there.
Sweet, but I can't remember exactly what I said to one of them, but he looks like heartbroken. He looked at me like I just completely confused him. And I just felt so terrible, because I'm not used to just busting people's balls.
Don't feel bad.
No, I felt bad because these two were kids, and I normally work with kids, so I know that look of confusion. The moment that comes over them, he's like, wait, what do you mean?
Right.
I think I must have said something like, if your God loves happiness, then why did he create pain? And he was like, What?
Well said. Well said. And unfortunately for religious people, for Christians in particular, the book of Isaiah is very clear. Isaiah 45:7 says, I am responsible. I create peace and chaos. I am the Lord your God. I do all these things. Like, and when you say that to a Bible believing Christian, what can they answer to you? And most of the time I find they don't have any answer to that, because I'm like, it says in your book right here, literally right here in this line, that your God does the good and the bad. No, of course not. Obviously, they don't read the book. Did you guys, as Christians, have to read the Bible all the way through, cover to cover?
I didn't have to. But I did.
Yeah, me too.
Highly encouraged.
I did.
We had to read the Bible as like a trial for punishment.
What? Girl, they made you read Bible verses for punishment?
You're doing this. Go read the Bible.
Wow.
That's new.
Huh.
Right.
That's wild.
Read the Quran as our reward for the day. So
I didn't
unless
even
you have
own a
your period
Bible
and you
until I
can't
got
touch
married
it.
at 22.
Well, and Jenna, it would have been even more so for you, because being Catholic, you got extra books.
Straight up.
Yeah.
We sure do.
I have books that I haven't opened.
Not to mention, you have to eat the Jesus cracker every week.
That was such an interesting part. Asking my dad. So is this really like Jesus? Like, really?
And they told you it was.
And he's like, well, after the consecration, yes. And I'm like,
I never understood that. I didn't.
Okay.
You know,
We were cannibals.
the first time I heard that, I looked at my mom. I think I was like 4, and I was like, really? So I'm eating human flesh and blood and skin? I don't want to eat that.
People have been believing in this shit for 2,000 years.
Yeah.
Well, so it was interesting is that I had a conversation yesterday with a Christian who calls himself an ex-atheist, and I did this on an apologist's channel. Okay, so I'm the guest. And what we came to was this point where we were both saying that we want Christians and atheists to be able to talk and converse and not think that atheists are all evil and all that. And he was like, yeah, I totally agree. I see all the hostility, and we're both on the same page, until he gets to the point where we're talking about how I think that if you're a politician, religion should not have an impact on what you're doing. And
Yes,
what you're
100%.
promoting. Right. And he's like, so when you say, religious people shouldn't vote, and I was like, that's not what I said.
Yeah, that's not what you said.
It's like 3 times I had to be like, okay, so that's not what I said. But we came to a point where he was like, so I believe in a God, and God tells me that I have to proselytize. I have to go out and spread the word. And I was like, okay, I don't. And so he was like, so what about, it's the majority of the country believes it, so why not?
No, they don't.
I was like, well, what about everyone else?
Right.
It's like they don't count.
That's kind of where we just came to the stopping point where he's like,
And see, when you get to that stopping point, that's very telling, and that's how you know they've lost the argument.
They don't.
But what do you do? Because that's when everybody just kind of shrugs.
But they don't have. You don't have to stop there.
You flip it on its head, and you ask them, "Would you want Sharia law?" If most of the country was Muslim,
right?
Oh yeah,
right. You have to ask these people that, because people who I have noticed, people who have grown up in religious communities grew up in bubbles. And I'm sure, and I know I live in a New York City bubble, I get that. But if you've grown up in a religious bubble where it's always been, you can't think differently. If you picked a lane and that's the lane you have to stay in, and if you deviate from the lane, the rest of us are going to run you off the road, right? I find that has, of course, that hampers everybody's critical thinking skills. Nobody can figure that out. But I think especially as women, because we're expected to reproduce, we're expected to be our children's first teachers. We're expected to continue the traditions of the home. We get punished extra for saying we don't want to be part of this. And they and there are religious people who will act like you're on the outside of some exclusive club now. Even sometimes your own family will do it to you, because there was an ex Jehovah's Witness girl that I had to help her find a new house because her family was like, well, you can't live here. She was 16 years old. We could ACS got involved, all this shit. And they ultimately were told they had to take her back, but she wouldn't go back because she was like, forget it, they're going to torture me.
Yeah.
And she was right. They would have, because my first experience with Jehovah's Witnesses was when I was 12, and I found out my friend's father, who was an elder in a Jehovah's Witness congregation, was raping her.
Oh, wow.
And the Watchtower said,
There's a documentary I think on Netflix of stories like that, just story after story after story. It's just heartbreaking every time.
You know, one of the things that I never understood, and maybe somebody could help me, is that I don't quite understand what the issue is when you have, like, you know, very controlling type of organizations like Christianity, Islam, and even like all the inceptions that come with the Abrahamic religions, where it kind of leads into this, I don't know, sexual deviation when it comes to, like, you know, how they do, like, you know, like Catholic priests and like the little boys and also like other young ladies growing up, and then, you know, and they always have to be concerned about, like, you know, some type of person like as an authority that puts themselves over you, you know, and it I never understood that. Somebody help me.
I think I have something to say about that. I think it is because we are all sexualized from a young age. Women, especially
when you're forced into modesty. Yes, absolutely.
When you are told from as young as, you know, 9, 10, 11, that if a man looks at you and he goes after you, it's your fault because you're appealing to him. Young girls and young women are sexualized from a really, really young age. And also because men are not able to, you know, act, or really men or women are not able to act on their desires until they're married and all that jazz is done. It creates a lot of deviance within the mind. Like, I've seen I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's like a pornography demographic. And within the Middle East, common porn favorites are gay porn, lesbian porn, anal porn, you know, zoophilia, like all this deviant stuff. Japan, which is notoriously known for its sort of conservative sort of view on sex and that kind of relationship, they come up with a lot of weird taboo sex fetish stuff.
Hentai.
Yeah.
Oh, God. And also, when you're not properly educated about the mechanics of your own body, and you're not properly educated on interpersonal relationships, and you're told, especially as a girl, that your job is to grow up, get married, and submit. You know, they never teach you how to make your own identity. They never teach you how to have that identity up against your husband's identity and see how they work, because you're just supposed to be a woo.
Now, to be fair, when we were all growing up, there wasn't a lot of internet access. So if you wanted to learn anything else, you had to go seek it out.
And they could stop you.
Yeah.
Now they can't
there's
stop
a stream of stuff that's educating you coming off of the TV and church. So there's plenty coming at you, but not enough resources to evaluate it.
I also think on the flip side, though, that men are also sort of raised to be hyper masculine, and if they're not that way, like if their wife is a, you know, stronger figure than them, they're looked at as if, you know, what's wrong with you? Why can't you keep your woman in check? You know, or you know, I've seen it so many times. I remember when me and my father used to talk a lot. My father was a nutter, but we used to talk a lot when I was younger. He came home one time and he said, so I gave this guy advice about marriage because he was looking for a wife. And I said, okay, what did you tell him? And he said, this guy kept saying that he wanted to find a woman that he could have a friendship with. And I didn't get it. And I was like, what do you mean you didn't get it? And he said, well, if you get married to a woman, she's going to have to clean your house. Like, what kind of a friend would you be if you let your friend clean your house?
Inadvertently missing, you know, approaching the point, but then
But if they were my friend, I would clean my house.
It's meant to be a joint effort, in my opinion.
I agree.
Clean your own shit.
So you know
what? Ask you both clean it up. It's that simple.
Yeah.
My partner said the very, very sexy thing to me today. I was going to leave to go down to the protests and drop off some donations. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go head down. He's like, all right, burn it all down.
Yeah, that's hot.
You know, he's staying at home working, earning the money, and I'm off to fight in the battle. Like,
Good.
it's
Burn it all down, baby.
and
Do
he's
it.
so supportive of it. I love that.
He knew when you shaved your head, you were ready for a fight.
Right.
Oh, he's
Yeah.
known I was ready to fight since he met me 10
Yeah.
years ago.
And you know what? You got to be a certain type of man to be equal to a woman like that. Straight up. Because my ex, he couldn't handle it. He was like, "Why are you always mad about religion? Why are you always telling people off?"
All of my exes were like that.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm not actually always telling people off, but people are fucking wrong.
Yeah.
Because there's
Shout
a
out to
real
my
issue
husband.
and you're talking about it and men aren't aware of it. And so if you talk about it too much, they get annoyed. It's the
Right.
same thing that happens
Right.
with white people and the people of color dynamic. When we look at white people of color complaining about what's going on, we're like, oh, that's really annoying that you do that all the time. Could you not? Like it's bothering me, and it takes somebody who will embrace the reality of what's going on to understand we're not just ranting.
We are making fun of you, though, just to be clear.
To make fun of who?
Oh, I'm not even gonna lie. Yeah, I make fun of white people.
That's okay. You're allowed to. I make fun of white people all the time.
Yeah.
Tell me how we conquered the whole fucking world, all the places where they had spices, and we don't use any of it in our food.
That's our big complaint about the colonizing.
Don't get me
If I could colonize again.
Right.
Right.
And like, I thought it was really cool that girl stood up and said, "You are the looters. White people are the looters." Because that's true. We looted the whole fucking world.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
If you even looked at a lot of the footage that I even seen like in my own city, like the majority of people that was actually looting were white people.
Sure, they're there to cause problems. They're there to delegitimize the protest.
So this is not protesting.
Nope.
I do not believe in holding the son accountable for what the father did.
Agreed.
So I really, really don't like the whole, your people did the colonies sort of rhetoric, because I don't feel like it goes anywhere.
Right.
But it did create the system that we're in right now.
It doesn't go anywhere, but they need that context, because otherwise they're like, oh, we live in a post-racism world. I'm colorblind, and like.
I fully understand the context, but sometimes you're just dealt a hand and you need to get on with your life. You can understand the context as much as, that's just me. I'm a very stoic person, and racism, while I have faced it in my life, has never been like a major factor in my problems, because I've had really deep issues with my own family, so that's what I focused on the most. But if we are going to talk about the riot, and I do think we should touch on it because it is a current issue, I think that me personally, I'm 100% with the protesters, and looting and rioting is just an unfortunate, but it is just a part of protest.
Right, I agree.
It is.
And I think that people focusing on the actual rioting and looting are missing the point. And they just, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry if this sounds harsh, but you just need to get over it.
But you're right, because there are people who are saying, "Oh, it's so horrible, black people are being killed, but look at all the property destruction," which is disgusting. It's horrible that property is being destroyed. Yeah, it's horrible that property is being destroyed, but black people are being killed.
So one of the issues that happens here, because like, okay, I got to step in. Like, I'm also a co-host of the 13%, and that is a socio-political show that actually talks about Black issues in America. All right, so let me put this hat on.
Yes.
So one of the things that often is missing in this whole conversation is the why. Why is it that Derek Chauvin felt that it was okay for him to put his knee in this man's neck for 9 minutes? Why was it okay for the cops in New York to do excessive force on Eric Garner? Why was it okay for a whole bunch of different cops to subdue Sterling Alton just because he was selling CDs in front of a convenience store? Why? And one of the things that I think that some of the other people that's in like different countries doesn't really understand is like the birth of racism was right here in America. And when you and the reason why there is racism is because of Black people. And the reason why we also have the racism is to prop up the institution of slavery, which made America a superpower. Okay.
Right.
And
Sure.
then after that 250-year mark into 1865, it was abolished, but we still had 100 years of Jim Crow.
Right.
And then after 100 years of Jim Crow, even though that we got sweeping legislation in 1964, 1965, and 1968 with the Civil Rights Acts, we still then turned those particular issues and then turned it around so that Black Americans did not get access to full citizenship.
Right.
And then what we're missing oftentimes is that since we don't have access to full citizenship, we have less access to accountability when we have people, a law enforcement that's holding these particular powers in government that actually feels it's okay to actually practice killing of Black bodies with impunity. And it's not just in law enforcement. We're finding this in the racial wealth gap. We're finding this in education. We're finding this in when you're looking at a predominantly Black neighborhood, like say for instance where I live versus like in Chicago is the perfect example. It's a very segregated city, and depending on where the majority of Black people are living versus the majority of white or other ethnicities, it's almost like night and day.
Yeah.
And it's not, and I mean, I paid somebody to not only clean out my gutters, but also cut my grass today. And it's not that I don't necessarily want to lose weight. Have a nice area because that's just adulting. But it's because, but just because like my neighborhood may actually get less resources than another particular area that actually has more of a concentration of white people in it. So we're dealing with a lot of these different disparities that actually happen. And what happened is that even though like we had powder kegs, like we're just seeing like a continuous powder keg of explosion and explosion. And I think that a great civil rights activist said this. And matter of fact, when we did our show yesterday, I played a clip of hers where, and her name is Fannie Lou Hamer. And she was being interviewed, and then she said that, you know, Black people suffered in the United States. They know what they did to us. And you have a concentration of young people that is together that is tired, and they're not taking it anymore, and they're going to burn it all down. And they're saying that if we don't burn it down, you're not going to have it. If we're not going to have it, you're not going to have it either.
Right.
And even though like I don't necessarily condone rioting, I don't necessarily condone setting buildings on fire. I feel like I'm more of a person that is about pushing policy so that we can change it from the government on down to affect communities for the better. But I get it.
Yeah.
I totally get it. And I mean like, and even when I saw like, you know, Marie, I saw the other day when they set that police station on fire in Minneapolis.
I was okay with that.
Yeah.
I was okay with that too. I was like, burn it all down.
Especially because
I
it seems that it was a cop who did it.
Yeah, and I get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, so and this is here, and here we are. And I remember I was even talking to my boyfriend earlier, and he said, you know, one of the things that is not necessarily experienced, and even though like I, you know, so just to preface, like my mother's from Jamaica, and of course that's a predominantly Black country, but she never really experienced the full racism until she got here in 1963. You know, and she did march. She did march. She did petition. She, you know, she was very much so active, but I would wonder what my cousins who came from Jamaica, who went to UK, actually had a different experience than my mother for first coming here, you know, because I'm pretty sure, like, you know, even though I've never been there, but I know as far as like, you know, I'm not, and not to say that, you know, racism doesn't exist in the UK. I'm pretty sure that it does.
It's a lot more subtle than it is.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you have it more overt, more covert than overt.
We're known to be stiff upper lipped, so.
So speaking as a person who wasn't racist, but used to be that person who, I don't know how to describe it. It's like, I didn't have a problem with anybody that was different than me, whether they were gay, whether they were Black, whether they were whatever you can think of. But I did feel like I was superior because I was raised in this religion. This is the one true religion. This is, you are better. This is right. But everyone else is wrong, you know?
There are Black Catholics though, aren't there?
I'm sorry?
There are Black Catholics though, aren't there?
Lots. Yeah.
I don't know any, actually.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
So, but I also grew up in a very small town.
Most of the Black Catholics I know are Haitian or Dominican.
Yeah, a lot of Black Catholics happen to be immigrant, even though that my father was a Catholic and he was a descendant of slavery.
Yeah.
Right here,
well, my ex-boyfriend's parents came from Jamaica in 1968, and they're both Catholics. So my ex was raised Catholic, but then they started going to like a Lutheran or an Episcopalian, like Christian light type stuff. And
there's a lot of Jamaicans that were Episcopal. Jamaica was an English colony. So
Jamaica was an English colony. Any Spanish colonies or
Catholics
or Portuguese colonies or Catholics. Yeah,
right. Exactly.
When I was down in DR in 2018, I was building a school down there with a friend of mine who's from the particular area where we were building the school. And we were building it specifically because we wanted a secular institution for people who lived in poverty, who, if you wanted to continue your education, you had to go to an evangelical, an Episcopalian, a Catholic, a Jehovah's Witness, or a Lutheran or a Mormon or something like that. Those were the 5 choices you had to continue your education beyond like the 8th grade. And there's no law in DR that says how long you have to go to school. In America, we have a law that says you have to go to school until at least the age of 16, then you can sign yourself out. In DR, you never have to go. If you don't want to go, you don't want to go. You can't go past the age of 8 or 9, which was a lot of people I met, then you don't have to. The government's not going to come after you, particularly in the Black and poor areas of DR. There's no oversight at all. So we were putting together a building that had a daycare, that had, because we have students in that school who want to come to that school who are 14 and have 2 kids.
Wow.
Because that's just what the culture is. That's poverty. You start young with that and you stick yourself in a cycle, and that's how it works. And you know, while we were building it, we had people who were like, well, you know, which church are you affiliated with? Who are you asking for donations? What are you going to teach the kids? You know, and really this school was supposed to be a trade school. It was supposed to be get the education that you need for an American equivalent of a GED. Graduate from high school if you didn't, and then you can learn a trade. You don't have to go to the capital and go to a university if you don't want to, or if you can't afford to. But if you come to us, you'll have a trade. And we taught ironworking, carpentry, plumbing, all that stuff. And you didn't have to be a male to do it. And I just remember seeing the words Cristo viene ya all over the place. Christ is coming soon, everywhere I went. And I finally had to say to people, do you really think that you speak Spanish because that's the language of DR? Like, why do you speak Spanish here? It's because you were colonized. Why are you following these religions? Why are you doing this? Why are you allowing the colonization mentality to keep you poor? Because one of the points I wanted to make earlier was that in America, Christianity is sufficiently westernized, secularized, and commercialized that we don't feel the impact, really, especially white people, of living within a totally restrictive community where your poverty dictates your adherence. Down in DR, where they have electricity 21 hours of the day instead of 24, and you can't flush toilet paper, and the roads are dirt with a metal rim at the end of them so that you don't speed down the street too fast and kill someone because there's no traffic lights. You know, that's a bubble. That's a tiny place. And with so little access and so much poverty and so little hope, of course you're going to go to church when they offer you hope.
Sorry, Jenna was making a point about her feeling.
Oh, sorry, Jenna. Oh my God.
Oh,
I'm
no,
sorry.
it's okay. I was just trying to kind of bring the other perspective, trying to think back to, because I feel like I was one of those people, because I remember the man who was killed in Ferguson. I lived in St. Louis when that happened. And I remember there were people protesting. What was his name?
Michael Brown.
Michael Brown. I remember people protesting, and I remember people, I think, laying down in malls. And I was that kind of person who was like, well, that's not going to do anything.
Yep.
And
yeah, I think everyone does have that initial sort of nothing's ever going to change kind of reaction to any kind of protest. But
so I guess maybe it just had to build up enough. I don't know I don't understand.
I think it's a normal response from a lot of people to go, well, that's not going to change anything. It's not until you have a certain level of anger and rage, and you also have a following. Like if it's just 2 people lying down in the mall, that's not going to do anything. But if you have, thousands of people who are incensed by this and are holding this, unanimous protest, it really does matter on how many people you can rally.
So creating more rage.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
COVID had a part of this being the boiling point,
Mm-hmm.
because people of color are disproportionately affected
Mm-hmm.
by the at-large effects that COVID-19 is having, and so they've been impacted for quite a few months now, dealing with worse than they ever have.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go and kill another man, and we've all been laid off.
Right.
That came as a surprise to me that in the middle of a pandemic, someone had died due to brutality. It was just.
Yeah.
I wasn't surprised, especially if it's a Black man. And I mean, and just to be clear, like even when we're talking about COVID-19, it's not just like people of color, because it's people of color uses like all minorities, and we know that all minority groups have very different experiences. Even if we're talking about who is disproportionately affected, even when it comes to this pandemic, is Black people. And I think it's Black is about 70% the last time I checked the statistics, and then the next group is Latinx.
Okay.
And then it goes on down from there. But even in that particular space, like because I also write a blog in the show notes, people, if you want to take a look, when I've heard the statistics about, Black people dying more, and also they were even affected economically because of being laid off and things of that nature, I wasn't shocked. And a lot of it is because of the missing resources and infrastructures in our community to help mitigate those things. Like I remember, like I made my mother go to this meeting that I couldn't go to because they were talking about taking the hospital out of our neighborhood and 3 more hospitals that's in predominantly Black areas, and then closing all those hospitals down and then merging all those hospitals into one that's going to be further away from where we live. And I was like, hell no, that is not happening. And
I think an additional problem with the US is that you don't have a healthcare system.
That's absolutely true.
No, we don't. We don't.
It's accessible by all.
Yeah, it's all. I mean, that's part of it. But but even if we're talking about like the systems, I mean, like even like any time that you are mentioning racism, it's the system. It's the and how like the system is adversely affecting one group versus the other. And and like even like. Sorry, baby. Hey.
Sorry, my husband, my 5-year-old is yelling from the other room, so he just answered her. Usually I have him on mute.
All right. No problem, honey. No, that's good.
I was wondering whose husband had walked in.
My husband chimed in. Don't you know that we're having this round table with women? But it's okay. But yeah, so when we're dealing with the systems and and I was even saying like you need to go to this meeting because they're trying to take our hospital away. And I know that hospital saved my life, that hospital saved your life, that hospital saved everybody in this household's life, and but like I can even look at like a lot of even the demographics in our city alone, where COVID is like the mostly impacting. Yeah. And those are the areas that are lacking proper healthcare systems, lack of hospitals, very little clinics, even like little things like a grocery store. Yeah. I mean, like, and all those different things, those social determinants of health, they matter.
For sure. Cynthia, is the hospital by you a part of a network or is it independent?
It is part of a network.
Okay. Is it a religious network or just a medical?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. That's one thing that I don't really understand.
I can't deal with
how religion is in the healthcare system. Because I come from a country that has universal healthcare. So we have one system, we show up, but being down here and going and getting healthcare and realizing this is a Catholic hospital or this is a Christian hospital. I don't understand the correlation between the two.
It's really, I think,
I'm married
honestly,
an American.
Like, perfectly honestly, I do think that in a way, religious hospitals, the religious networks are trying to enforce what type of care people can have. And they put, for example, a Catholic hospital right? And they're like in Arkansas, for example. I actually have a story about this. Okay, this is good. There was a girl I was doing job training for in Arkansas, and she got pregnant and she needed an abortion. And the only hospital near her was a Catholic hospital. And there was no Planned Parenthood within easy reach of us. And the only hospital near her was a Catholic hospital. It turned out that she had a miscarriage about 6 weeks into the pregnancy and needed a D&C. The hospital would not perform that for her because they considered it an abortion. So we had to drive way out of our way to find a clinic that would give her the D&C that she needed. I had a similar experience. I miscarried a pregnancy at 15 weeks, but the hospitals here are public and they're secular. So I didn't have to ask. They just did it. We had to find a place, and this chick was sick from this miscarriage. But it's a Catholic hospital. They would not give her birth control.
So would they have let her die then?
Yes, they did it in Ireland.
Wow. I can't seem to wrap my head around that, because when you become a nurse or a doctor, because I am in nursing right now, and how could you refuse to take care of someone because your religious beliefs tell you that you shouldn't? Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Dogmatism is when you value your ideas above people.
That's right. Ideology over people.
And I don't know, I just couldn't imagine something like that happening here, because I work with teenagers normally.
Yeah, I don't think it would happen there, Faye.
No.
I have my doubts, yeah.
Are there a lot of, I've noticed this, that a lot of young people in Britain, particularly young white people, have children very, very young, like 15, 16. They start having their first kids.
It depends on the area, but if I'm being completely honest, I've only worked in the London area, and I think I've only ever experienced one teen pregnancy in 4 years of working in.
Fantastic.
So,
Fantastic. Good to hear.
I mean, our sex ed isn't particularly wonderful. It still needs a lot of improvement, but I would say that it has improved in the last 4 or 5 years.
Do you think that's because? Oh, I'm sorry, Cynthia. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, speaking of sex, Marie. You were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Segue, right? I'm real subtle. You were talking about like the work you do concerning like polygamy and monogamy. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Ethically non-monogamous. I can't wait to hear about this. This is so
I've got 12 husbands.
Nice.
They clean my house. We take turns. Polygamy.
Yay.
Oh,
do you force them to give you dick anytime you want it?
No,
because it's an egalitarian relationship.
No. So it's actually called ethical non-monogamy is one way to phrase it. There's a couple other words for it. Polyamory is one version of ethical non-monogamy. And what was the question in general? Like, yeah, I talk about it.
Yeah, no, it was kind of funny because like on Twitter, I got like there's a pastor that, you know, we're cool with each other. We retweet each other all the time. And he actually brought up the whole thing about polygamy because he said that, do you think that, you know, polygamy is something that could be practiced today, especially when you think about the patriarchs of the Bible practice polygamy in the Old Testament. And so I remember I said, well, I'm the atheist here and I'm chiming in and I said, yeah, polygamy is fine. I don't have a problem with it. I don't necessarily know if that's something that I'm okay with, but I think that a lot of that has to do with my Western thinking. But as far as like, you know, but if any part, but it's, my whole thing is like, if you all are consenting adults.
Yeah.
Why not?
That's the word though, is consent.
Yeah. When someone actually had a conversation with me once and said, well, how would you feel if someone had 10 husbands or your daughter wanted to have 10 husbands? I'm like, I don't really care. If she happy, is she safe? Does she consent? Then I don't have a problem with it.
I feel great. That's so much income.
Marie, so is that legal?
I don't understand it would be their problem also if your daughter had 10 husbands.
But the funny thing is, if you guys have seen the episode of Kimmy Schmidt, when one of her fellow mole women starts her own cult, except of like male captives, and she finds it really, really disappointing because young boys are disgusting. And so that she just wants to murder them all.
I have a 13-year-old. They really are. They really are. They don't try to be, but they really are gross.
Yeah. Well, Cynthia, I think that you asked, or maybe it was Faye, if it's legal.
Oh, I asked. Yeah.
Oh, was that you, Jenna? I don't know. I mean, it depends what it is. I mean, it's not legal to be married to two people at once, but that's not what but that's polygamy, and that's not what
Right.
I do.
For example, like my grandfather, my mother's father, was a bigamist. And he got arrested a whole bunch of times because he just went around the country marrying women, sowing his seed. My mother has so many siblings, we haven't even found all of them.
Wow.
So he had 5 wives over there. And you want to talk about white male privilege? That's what that was, because nobody ever questioned him. He met my grandmother and married my grandmother 3 weeks after he met her. 2 months after they got married, she told him she was pregnant, and he abandoned her in Grand Central. And he went off to California and married 4 more women. Right? But nobody ever questioned him. And that's the illegal part. That's bigamy. What Marie, I think that you're talking about is a consensual relationship with everybody who agrees to be there, who wants to be there.
You know what you guys are doing right now in COVID-19, where everyone's communicating, and like you come home from work and you get sick with COVID, and so you contact everyone that you saw the last 3 days, and you have these vulnerable, real conversations. Guess what? That's ethical non-monogamy. Like, that's watching out for people, that's communicating, that's being transparent, that's caring about the health of those who you are near to. So everyone that's handling COVID-19 communications is learning how to be polyamorous.
Nice.
Amazing.
Well,
You know, go ahead. I'm sorry. No, go ahead, Jenna.
Well, just kind of the religious people bring up, you know, the hospital kind of thing, you know. So is one like a main one that you would have visit you at the hospital, or I'm just curious.
Well, if it comes down to you're only allowed to have one person in your hospital room, and that's like the big deal or whatever, then it'll just be my primary partner, because I can't change the system, and I don't call him my primary partner either, but that's what most people know. Like, I don't fucking care. Right. Like, by that time, just fucking heal me. It's at least one of my partners will be there. Like, it's not that fun. Like, out of all the things that we needed to explore and understand about why ethical non-monogamy is a legitimate choice, and all of that, like the catastrophic, oh my God, who's going to be in the hospital room with me is like, it's fine. Just don't.
Well, not in like a picking your favorite kind of way, but I meant like a legal like
Like who's your next of kin?
It's next of kin, and for me, like, I've never ever seen my multiple partners as a primary or a secondary. I use something like anchor partner, like is kind of the person that I tend to gravitate around the most because I choose to. So the word describes what I choose to do. I don't do something that is like a word was given to me and that's what I act out. Like this is just the person that I live with. It's someone who I'm legally, contractually, romantically obligated to. And so we share finances, we share a home, but I wouldn't call him, I don't like the primary partner, gross. So
do you have a favorite though?
Nice.
A favorite for what?
Favorite partner, you know what you mean.
No, I don't. There's 3 million things that could mean. That's the wonderful thing, that I don't need to replace anyone. You know?
And something that I love about this community is you don't have to have a label for things.
Right.
And I'm still breaking myself from that.
Jenna, that's how you were raised, though. Yeah, but that's how we got raised, with everything being labeled. Especially if you had the religious influence on you, everything was supposed to be compartmentalized and labeled. And that's why a lot of religious people can't deal with speaking to atheists who are like, I'm sorry, I'm outside of your paradigm.
Because they can't understand. And it's understandable that they can't understand, because I'm having trouble understanding, and it's been a year and a half.
The deconstruction after leaving religion is probably the worst, Jenna, just to make you excited about this part. But I was going to share that a few weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I took about a week off of social media because I've been addicted since about 2007, and it's unhealthy and it's not good for my brain. Have I gotten better since then? No, but that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is that 3 weeks ago, I took some time off of social media and journaled a lot and was present with my thoughts a lot. And one day I realized, oh shit, I'm pansexual.
Hooray!
And then I mean, like, whatever it is, I don't really fucking care. But the point of it is I'm pansexual because I don't know who I'm attracted to until I am. Like, why would I commit to how I feel in the future?
Yeah.
Like, why? I'm just attracted to whoever I'm attracted to.
Right.
Why are you trying to have me predict who
Because
that
you're
is?
supposed to lay down and have babies, Marie. You have a vagina.
No, I already fixed. It's all done. It's all. I fixed it.
Good
It's
girl.
all
Good.
done.
That's my goal.
In high school, I always thought that I was just picky because I didn't have a type, and I wasn't attracted to very many people, and they had nothing in common almost.
Yeah.
I was just like, and that's the thing, Faye, I think you were saying you were better with online dating. And I was like, I couldn't do that because I don't know until I meet you. I have no idea. There's like a vibe.
And also, I'm afraid of that. Like,
well, it's more that I like knowing if I'm gonna dick this person when I meet them or not.
yeah.
My husband and I actually met online, and we talked and video chatted for a full year before we met in person.
Holy shit!
Oh, wow.
And we've been together 7 years now. Well, it'll be 7 years in July.
Yeah.
Wow. Congrats.
I've been dating the same guy since I was 19. I'm 32 now. Like,
whatever.
But I will tell you guys, like, just out of my own preferences and my own attractions, I've never had a white boyfriend.
My husband's my first one.
yeah, there you go. Like, I just, having grown up with like a cuckoo dad, I think maybe he turned me off white guys, or maybe I'm just not attracted to them. But having grown up with my dad, my uncles, some like my older brother, I'm like, no. See, I'm good.
I can't stand brown.
In high school,
we had the same experience, Faye.
In high school, I was more attracted to Black men and Hispanic men because there was like this confidence about them that I didn't see in the white boys at my school.
Right.
You know, like they were timid, they were shy, but something about that confidence, I was like, oh yeah, like that's hot.
Well, I sometimes worry that white men are sociopaths because they've been grown up, especially in America, in this society where they can do whatever the fuck they want.
And we are obviously generalizing.
Yeah, clearly. Oh my God, obviously not. This does not apply to all white men.
What really opened my eyes.
We ain't mad at you, Ethan. We're not mad at you.
What really opened my eyes about my last boyfriend was when he cooked pasta and he put nothing in it but butter.
No.
Oh no. He was white, right?
He was so white. He was basically just translucent.
No, sweetie.
Let me finish the story. Every time I tell the story, all of my friends just look at me like, how were you with this guy for a whole year? I once
you didn't eat his food.
I once made him his slop. Like, I made him his pasta and his butter, and I decided, like a normal human being, to season it with like salt and pepper. And he took one bite and he looked at me. He did that lip smacking thing that people do. And he looked at me and he was like, "Babe, it's too spicy. You put too much pepper in it."
Spice.
I wanted to knock him out.
Did you use black pepper?
Yeah.
Did you just use black pepper? Oh no.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, but I will tell you, having grown up with white lady cooking my whole life, like my mother not even like only cooking the very outside of the steak because she grew up with rare meat and eating stuff that was totally unseasoned. Girl, I learned to cook when I was 10 years old. I was like, I am not eating this slop anymore. We need some garlic. We need some onion. We need some freshness.
Thank you.
And I used to get yelled at as a kid for not finishing my food, but it was fucking disgusting. And now I'm like nachos and like, you know.
I cannot. Being my mother was Jamaican and my dad was from the South.
Oh, I mean, you ate
great food.
I would just tell you, like around holidays, we had like Jamaican food and soul food at the same time, like on the thing. Yeah, you know. But I never ate I never ate a chitterling, and I never will.
I learned to cook curries and stuff when I was
are those?
10 or 11. So
a chitterling. Chitlins, pig intestines.
Oh, they're intestines. I knew they were a part of a pig, but I didn't know which part they were. Yeah. I've eaten pig cheek before. That's okay. A Filipino guy I knew gave me pig cheek. What
they call that sweet bread. I think that's
it was okay. Yeah. I grew up not being allowed to eat pork, so once I was like,
You had a question in the chat. I think there's someone asked that they still didn't know what a pansexual was.
Oh, did anybody see Schitt's Creek?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
Yeah,
when
David is
David gave that great
pansexual.
analogy. Mm-hmm.
Do you want to
Yeah,
say or
ask-
me?
Yeah. Somebody say it.
Somebody who's
Basically,
actually
you're just not,
pansexual. Yeah,
gender is not a factor.
right.
I think the interesting thing about it for me is it's very statistic. Like if you plot it on a chart, when my eyes kind of perk up, like what are the qualities of someone that I see that I'm attracted to, you could chart it and you could create a bell curve of sorts and say, well, it seems to be like this is kind of what she likes. But that's the thing. Why would I want to say, this is who I am? The very top of that bell curve where it peaks, that's my identity. Why wouldn't I want to allow these deviations to also be there? Just because that's the most statistically possible doesn't mean that's my identity.
Right.
Yeah. And I think we got another one that if anyone knows what a demisexual is. I said, well, I Googled it real quick.
Yeah.
Demisexual means my best understanding, and of course for a lot of these words there are varying ways to define it based on the person who's reporting it, but demisexual means that you need to have an emotional connection with someone before feeling a sexual connection.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that.
I know people like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
they have to know them really well. Like,
yeah.
Basically be their friend first.
Yeah.
That would be me.
Is that you, Mindy?
Yeah, well, I've had conversations with people before about how they've, made mistakes and had that one night stand and all that stuff. And that's not something I would be able to do because I wouldn't be able to sleep with someone that I just met. Like I have to know you as a person before I feel that sexual attraction enough to be able to get into bed with you.
Yeah. I've only had a one night stand one time, but I didn't call it a mistake. It was just something that I experimented with. And I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. I don't really need to do it again, but I've done it.
It's the closest you can get to killing a person.
A one night stand?
The closest thing to killing a person?
I want to hear why. I want to know why.
Yeah,
closest thing. It's the closest thing you can get to killing a person. And this is why, in my brain anyway, this is how it works. I have a very caveman brain, by the way. But this is why I think it is. It's because you meet a stranger, they feed you, they take you back to their home, you fuck the shit out of them, you never see them again.
Well, sometimes that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that one time. Yeah, I've done it.
The rush you get from it of, I'm never going to see that person again.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't think I ever felt a rush.
No.
I didn't either. Like there were times where I would go out and be like, I'm going to make out with someone tonight.
Yeah, girl.
And I did.
I used to think that I was demisexual, and I think it's a way to define something, whether it's a permanent quality or whether it's a transitional period for you. And I think for me, demisexuality is something I'm kind of transitioning through as I'm moving out of repressive narratives from religion, which in the end ended up creating something in me that can be described as demisexuality. However, as I continue to move forward and unpack how I feel about things and unpack releasing judgment of other people and opening up and being vulnerable and letting more people in, I can totally see a future where if I just went on the right date, like the right first date, and I usually bring up death and God and sex within the first 5 minutes.
Good. I know I would like you.
Yeah, if they're not on board, we're probably not going anywhere. And so if you meet the right person, that demisexuality can be achieved within 2 hours with the right person who's willing to be honest and show up and all that. So I think for me, in some way, toxic masculinity plays into that inability to do a one night stand, because usually in those first dates, there's a lot of showing off and not being vulnerable. But I show up on first dates and I'm like, this is where this is my skin.
All of the one night stands that I've had, I've kind of planned them as one night stands also.
Yeah, if you're intending to it, great.
I'm realizing I'm defining one night stands kind of differently from y'all.
What's it for you?
Well, it seems like y'all are talking about going out on a date and then sleeping with somebody after, right?
Yeah.
Not as a part of the date.
Are you talking about fucking a stranger?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
And I've done it.
What I would do is I'd go out and drink and I would just go home with someone.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, that would qualify, I think.
That qualifies.
That qualifies as a one night stand?
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
Because I think it's different, because I don't think I could do the date and then the sleep right after thing. But
Mhm.
I mean,
I've
when
done
you're
that
drunk,
too.
I mean,
Yeah, when you're drunk,
Yeah,
anything goes.
And I know that I've done both. I mean, like I've
I've
been on a date and you know, and with that. And then I've also had that's a lot of Grey Goose. And you're cute. And then
I'm gonna be completely honest. I think I've only ever been on one date or seen one guy where I didn't sleep with him for the first time on the first date.
I mean, I feel like our modern culture, that's much more acceptable. Like if by date 3 you guys haven't like done something, unless you're consciously like dating. I mean, maybe I'm qualifying and generalizing too much, but if I think American culture particularly, or Western culture particularly, is much more okay with free sexuality in a way that we didn't used to be.
If we
like,
have a strong culture
We're
of
getting there.
consent
I wouldn't
and
say we're there
language
already, though.
and discussion, I could see 2 people showing up and like, hey, do you want to get food together? Yeah, I want to get food together. Do you want to go to this place? Yeah, I want to go to this place. Hey, we're hanging out together. Does it feel good for you? Yeah, it feels good for me. Hey, what if we, I kind of want to touch your genitals. Do you want to touch your genitals? Yeah, okay, let's do that. So it's just how the night evolves.
Yeah.
You build these consensual things that you're doing together. Why are we putting sex on some kind of different level? It's just something fun. It's like,
because we've been trained to.
Hey, let's go play croquet. Was that fun? Was it good for you? Yeah, I love croquet. It was fun. Now you want to fuck? Yeah, let's do that now.
It's pure curiosity because I put so much emphasis on what my sex life is going to be if I decide to become committed to this person.
Right. But you're also very much in control of that, Faye. And that's like a huge deal. Women who are in control of their sex lives are a direct threat to the religious communities. Like, if you listen to, like, one of my favorite artists to listen to is this girl named Spice. And she's, I don't remember if she's Jamaican or she's Trinidadian. But she has all these songs about what she likes when she fucks, what she wants you to do to her, touch her, like words that if you played them in like a public gathering, there would be a lot of people who would be like,
maybe in America.
Yeah,
right.
But it's a kind of sexual liberation that she's unashamed of, and she uses terms that we would consider vulgar. And I love that shit because we get told all the time to be ashamed of our pleasure and ashamed of our body. What man on this earth who's a cisgender man can understand the clitoris?
Hopefully more than usual.
Yeah, real. Hopefully, as we move forward, more of them. But they don't understand what that means to have the pleasure button right there, and that's why in certain cultures,
most of the ones that
how many nerve endings is in the clitoris?
Like 8,000. Yeah,
something like that. Yeah,
and the clitoris goes inside you. It's not just the one little butt. It's connected by nerve ending to 2 very large glands inside your vulva. Right. So, like. Yeah. It's there, just men, and I don't know how you could miss it. I hear people saying men don't.
I know exactly how.
Yeah,
ignorance. Is it not right
ignorance, there? Ignorance puts it on them, which is mildly fair, but also, what are we teaching?
Agreed.
Have you ever told a man where it is? Because I.
Yes.
Really?
Listen, I've been privileged to never have that problem.
Yeah, no, I have. I'm like, nope, that's the wrong where. Nope, that's the wrong spot. Nope. To your left. There you go.
Hey.
Right.
That's what I do.
And do they have a problem with that, or are they
just
cool
reach
with
down there and grab it?
Right, I've done that.
That's
too.
right, Marie.
I've done that as well. Like, no, this way. Yeah.
Do it.
I think it just depends on the person. You know what I'm saying? Like if especially like if you have sex with a person that's a little bit more experienced, they're more adept to actually knowing how to please a body. And then if you have some that maybe, right, depending on like what
experience I would say doesn't mean learning.
That's true. I agree. Or experience doesn't always mean that they are into making sure that their partner is pleased.
Yeah.
Yes, because there's a difference between having slept with lots of people and being experienced and paying attention to what your partner enjoys.
And also knowing that, you do need to keep a consistent flow of consent. You don't have to stop every 30 seconds and be like, is this okay with you? Mm-hmm. But like, especially with younger men or maybe American men in general, or just wherever porn is a thing, there are a lot of young men who want their sexual encounters to resemble the porn that they've watched. Now, I have no problem with porn. I have a problem with the abuses within porn, but I have no problem with watching people have sex. There's nothing wrong with that. But then when you have it is truly. But then when you have a 19, 20-year-old guy who doesn't have a lot of real world experience, but he watches porn and he's having sex with, you know, somebody, and he like he sees the porn he watches, so he like jams his dick into somebody's throat or something like that, or he's just like rough, or it's not like, or any person. It doesn't have to be a male. I shouldn't use these terms like this. I think I'm sort of projecting my own sexual experiences. Like if I'm with a guy, I did date a guy who like loved to choke me, and after a while I was like, bro, I can't breathe. Like I'm a champion. Yeah, he's doing it wrong, exactly. But like, and I don't mind. I'll do it until the makeup run down to my face. That's fine, no problem. I enjoy that. But don't do it to me to against my will. Don't do it to me to a point where I'm not feeling good, where I feel like I could throw up, or I feel like I don't like that. Some people do, but I don't. And I feel like there's a lot of roughness or a lot of expectation within sexual encounters that people have to be willing to understand that porn is porn and life
is performative.
Yes, agree. It is performative.
Yeah. And on that note, ladies, we are kind of over time.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that if anything gets out of this is that women have feelings too. Consent is sexy. And mind your own biases at your door, people.
Oh, beautiful.
And at that, and just like, I'm just going to go around the room and just everyone, just make sure that you let everyone know where people can find you and follow you. Faye, let's start with you.
So you can find me on Twitter or on YouTube at Faye the Most Gracious. I make content around, sometimes we make some content around serious stuff, but during lockdown, I'm trying to keep things light and fresh. Although I probably shouldn't say that the last 2 videos were about Black Lives Matter. So if you want to go and check those out, please do feel free to. Well, everything is linked below from what Ethan told me. So yeah.
Marie Delphant.
Bonjour. To learn about my coaching work, you can go to mariedelefant.com. To learn about my podcast, you can go to everyonesautonomous.com. And to look at the photography work that I'm doing at the George Floyd protests in Minneapolis, you can go to markeiphoto.com, which is spelled MARKEI photo.com.
Awesome.
And then all that stuff is on all of the different platforms.
Thank you. Jess B.
So you can find me on Twitter only at the moment. Due to my job, I got rid of all of my social media. My Twitter handle is JMercie, JAIMERCIE1. And there you will see all my ranting and my raving and my politics and my missing Bernie and my, down with the church and all that good stuff.
You got your Queen's Kids logo?
Sorry, Faye?
You got your Queen's Kids logo?
That's me all day long.
And Miss Sassy Heathen.
You can find me on YouTube, the Sassy Heathen.
Nice.
And it's basically the same everywhere, like Twitter, Facebook. It's all the Sassy Heathen.
Nice.
Yeah.
And that's
the same.
Jenna Belk. Jenna Belk, don't you have a show that's coming up?
Coming up. What do you mean?
You have a show.
Atheist
yes.
Experience?
Yes, girl. I watch you all the time.
Not just the Atheist Experience. You have also another show.
I have my own show that I started called Atheist Stasis on my channel, Jenna Belk. So that's trying. So it's so funny. Like, I'm so stuck on what Marie said about just kind of the curve and everything. I'm like, I have so many questions. I'm still that new atheist that I have so many things I have to talk about. But we're going to have to talk after this. Yes. But so I am learning on air things like this, random things that come up that we have to readdress. I'm trying to have a conversation with somebody that has more experience with it than I do, and just learning from different perspectives. Some people with degrees, some people without degrees, because that shit don't really, it matters, but it doesn't only matter.
Yeah.
So same thing, Jenna Belk.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thank you guys for sharing your stories and your experiences. It's like, just being so open. Again, everyone, thank you for tuning in to the Women in Atheism Roundtable. I think that's what this show is called this week.
Right.
A rectangular table this week.
Right, exactly. It's a rectangular round table. And please, again, make sure you like, subscribe to the channel. We have a Patreon. All the information is in the description below, including Patreon for Jenna as well, and how you all can support these wonderful women. And again, thank you for tuning in, and have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.